Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's an old adage in my home community that says when everyone else catches a cold, black folks catch pneumonia. The point is everyone is sick. The issue is just at varying degrees of disease, of illness. And that is certainly true when it comes to the climate crisis. It is felt by all of us, but the greatest burdens are borne by the most vulnerable people of color, low-income communities, immigrants, and non-native English speakers, all communities most at risk of poor health outcomes and least able to relocate or to rebuild after a disaster. In my district, the Massachusetts 7th, one of the most vibrant, diverse, and unequal districts in the country, is certainly not immune. From Chelsea to East Boston, many of my residents are vulnerable to rising sea levels, extreme heat, and poor air quality. In the Chinatown neighborhood in Boston, a predominantly immigrant and low-income community that falls at the crossroads of two major highways, my constituents breathe some of the most toxic air in all of Boston. Over the last several years, asthma rates at the Josiah Quincy Elementary School, which is in the heart of Chinatown, have jumped from 18 to 25%. Adding insult to injury, these issues aren't a coincidence. They are outcomes born out of decades of racial, economic, and social injustice. Man-made policies that have been worsened by the greed and deceit of the oil and fossil fuel industry. Now, burning fossil fuels are one of the greatest drivers of the climate crisis, and the oil industry has worsened the problem by delaying action through its denial campaign and engaging in insidious campaigns to directly embed themselves in communities most vulnerable. Dr. Ali, why do oil companies locate their facilities in these communities, and how do cities depend on them?
In many instances, they feel that these are the areas of least resistance. When these companies move in, property values go down for the folks who are on the fence lines. Healthcare costs go up because they are being impacted. And as you said, there is a systemic racism aspect to this, and that's one of the reasons that there's a conversation about civil rights. So we have to be focused, because what we find is that communities are being not only impacted but broken apart. Communities like Princeville, North Carolina, which was founded by freed slaves and hit by 100-year and 500-year floods. You have places like in Louisiana where indigenous folks have had to move down at the Isle de Charles, had to move away from their traditional lands. We can literally go down the list. You can look in Southwest Detroit in the 42817, where folks are literally right next to refinery, and they literally can't breathe. I wish that the members would actually go to these communities and spend real time. When you go to the Manchester community in Houston, Texas, primarily a Latino, hard-working community, when you roll the windows down in your car, you feel like you're breathing in gasoline fumes, and that is from the refineries.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. And speaking of Texas and Houston specifically, a major hub for the oil and gas industry, and is known as the world capital of energy. Houston was also hit very hard by Hurricane Harvey, a storm which reached unprecedented levels of intensity because of climate change. Harvey dumped so much rain on Houston that the National Weather Service had to add new colors to its rainfall chart in order to effectively map it. We know evacuation can be expensive. Dr. Ali, yes or no? When massive storms occur like Hurricanes Harvey or Maria, is everyone able to evacuate?
No.
And who is usually left behind?
People of color, low-income communities, and sometimes indigenous populations.
11 different oil refineries, including Exxon's Baytown, were forced to shut down their operations and flare off excess chemicals. Now, oil refineries are designed to run 24/7, so when they shut down, it causes massive spikes in pollution. According to a 2017 news report, Baytown, quote, released about double the amount of volatile organic compound, a broad category of air toxics, than its permit normally allows, unquote. Dr. Ali, how does this excess pollution affect the people who aren't able to evacuate the area?
They're trapped, and they're exposed to these chemicals, and they have breathing difficulties. You find these asthma bursts that happen. You find people developing liver and kidney disease because of these additional emissions that are going on.
Thank you. It's clear we must act today. We must act in this moment, and I second the impassioned comments of my colleague, Representative Gomez. and also express my pride in that this topic is before the Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Committee today, appropriately so.